This is the Chiefs official podcast network.
Take advantage of the day. When you get an opportunity in this game, you make a play. The playmakers on three. 1, 2, 3.
Touchdown, Kansas City! The Chiefs are right in the thick of it, baby!
Welcome, everyone, to this edition of Defending the Kingdom. Mitch Holthus with you, along with the one we call the Shop, Barber Shop, Spider-Man, 10-year NFL veteran Shawn Barber, and like everybody else, we're video conferencing this for your enjoyment. And we take a look. Now, the last 5 weeks, we've looked at different position groups. And quite honestly, Barbershop, we know that the NFL is keeping the date on the NFL draft. Won't be any big crowds, we know, with the social distancing and the stay-at-home orders throughout our country. But, hey, they're going to do this virtually, so there's no slowing down, and the team is getting ready for the draft as we jump into the running back position.
Whatever we got to do to keep each other safe, to keep the country as safe, we're willing to do. I know here in the Chiefs Kingdom, we're all doing our part, social distancing, staying 6, 8 feet, even 20 feet away from whoever the next person is. It's kind of hard when you got a family of 6 kids to try to create some social distancing in the house. So we don't even try. Once we lock the doors down, we're in the barber bunker. We got every day as normal. Go out in the backyard, try to catch some balls, do some things to stay active, walk a mile every day, do whatever you have to do. But right now, just so excited about the culmination of last year, defending champions. We had that never quit mentality sparked by our guy, our running back, D. Williams, all over the paper and everything. So I'm so excited to hit that position group today as we talk about defending the kingdom as we get ready for the 2020 draft.
Your family and my family share a lot of things. We also share, we believe in the power of prayer. So I know we're both praying for the world, our country, and for our region. I'm wearing this top today because this was the top we wore for the Salute to Service game in 2018 against Arizona. And it was to celebrate the 100-year anniversary of the end of World War I and the National World War I Museum here in Kansas City. The reason I wore it was also the time of the flu pandemic, which it infected Barbershop a fourth of the world. Now, we have better technology and better medicine and hopefully better behavior, but this is why you take this seriously when our public health officers are saying, here's what you need to do to keep social distancing so that we can flatten it. Because at that time, it killed tens of millions of people, and so we obviously want to avoid that. So we'll just keep all that in mind as we now go back to football and the running back position. Let's start with Damian Williams, running to immortality, the 38-yard run that'll forever, as I mentioned on the play-by-play of the game, he'll be forever remembered in the hearts of the Chiefs Kingdom everywhere. But to me, Damian Williams has become the prototype running back in what Andy Reid wants. There's enough power there, right? 5'11", 225 pounds. The dude's got power. He ran 4.4 when he came out of college in the combine in 2014. He was an awesome pass blocker. Go back and watch the Sammy Watkins play in the fourth quarter and watch him pass block. He was listed as one of the top 10 or 12 pass blockers in the National Football League. He can run it and he can catch it. To me, this is what Andy Reid wants in all of his running backs.
Man, he talked about it, having feet, balance, running behind your pads, having vision, football IQ to understand Coach Andy Reid's and Coach Bellamy's offensive sets, playmaking ability, hands, pass protection, then elusiveness after the catch, then that top gear. There's so many different categories to be able to rank and judge when you talk about the running back position. And I think as a whole, our running back group is one of the most well-rounded in the NFL. There's no superstar. We don't have the Ezekiel Elliott, the Todd Gurley, the McCaffrey, the Saquon Barkley. But when you talk about the impact our group of running backs have on a game, any single game, when you talk about commitment to the special teams, you talk about the commitment to third downs, and then you talk about what it's all about scoring zone and getting touchdowns, tasting that sweet nectar that you always talk about. I think we have one of the most well-rounded groups of individuals when you talk about running back positions in the NFL.
Yeah, the other play, we look, we remember the 38-yard run to end the game, basically, but the go-ahead touchdown's another play, that kind of scissors play that they ran using Tyreek Hill as a decoy, and Damian's ability to get to the edge. Was he there? Was he not? Well, it was close enough because of his effort and speed and ability to get out in space, whether it's a pass receiver or a runner. The other thing is, when I looked up his pass protection, Damian Williams allowed no sacks all year. He allowed only one. I don't think he allowed a hit. He did allow 2 hurries. A 91-yard run against Minnesota, the best run in the NFL all year. You look at him as a receiver, 32-yard receptions on a couple of occasions. To me, Damian Williams, as we mentioned, is the whole package, checks every box, but he needs help. We also know that this is not a Todd Gurley kind of back. That the Chiefs don't want to use that. I mean, it's just not in their system. So you got to find a clone of him to be on this roster as well.
Yeah, D. Williams, the other D. Williams. We got Sherman when you need a short yardage or a blocking back or a little sneaky decoy. But we always used more backs, right? We went from Spencer Ware to Shavarius West. We always had so many different profiles. And if you look at some of the guys that we decide not to go with, sometimes it's hard for those guys to find other NFL homes. Not because they're not good running backs, but because they're not great. They're not demanding $8 million, $5 million a season. They're these $3 million, $4 million a year running backs that can do things that other people can't do. Elusive, underneath catching, being able to make one man miss and get a first down, understanding what it means to possess and control the ball, because that's one of the things that we always hold as a high priority. Keeping the ball in our offense's hands and not turning the ball over is something that you game in and game out. It will cost you more games than not when you talk about that turnover battle.
Don't want to forget Darwin Thompson here either, going into his second year, the Tulsa native, played at Utah State, NEO, A&M. Remember the Oakland game later in the year where they said, hey, man, it's your fourth quarter, just take care of it. The more I find out about Darwin Thompson as a player and as a person, the more I get excited about him, because he becomes that Charkandrick West kind of guy. You want a Damian Williams, you want a Damian Williams clone. Maybe that's Darryl Williams. I'm going to get more into him in a little bit. But then there's Darwin Thompson, and he seems to also fit a niche for this offense, because you mentioned maybe they're great fits to me for what Andy Reid likes to do offensively.
Yeah, when you talk about also in baseball, you have some pitchers that come in sometimes and eat innings. You already have a lead. It's the third or fourth quarter. You're just trying to get some carries, run the clock out. There's no running back I can think that fits that job ability greater than Darwin Thompson. And he creates so many extra yards. Explosive, pound by pound, probably one of the most strongest individuals we've seen that come through Chiefs Kingdom. And that goes back to all his dedication in the weight room and everything he does off the field. It's an amazing amount of excitability you have with a guy like Darwin Thompson. He is definitely a compliment, and he got things done late in the season, not only on special teams, but in normal downs.
And let's talk about Anthony Sherman before we get into the crockpot guys. Anthony Sherman signs a contract yesterday, and Anthony Sherman, the sausage, we all kind of joke about him, and he likes to joke about himself. But I'm not sure I appreciate a guy better when I watch the video on Monday. It's something that I do before I talk with Coach Reid on Monday, and before I go into jump into all the shows that we do during the week. I want to review, particularly when it's fresh in my mind, the previous game. I'm not sure there's a player in the 7 years that Andy Reid's been here that impresses me more when I watch the tape than Anthony Sherman. I see the little things. I have to follow, doing play-by-play, I have to follow the ball. I don't see the little blocks that he makes or the little nuances or certain things that he does instinctively that helps the big play. Look at the 38-yard run, the run to immortality. He smokes the linebacker, drills the dude. Well, that's what he does all the time. Anthony Sherman is valuable to this team, maybe more than we even realize.
I think one thing he definitely brings it each and every day, and that's not only on game day, it's every practice day, and it also goes back to training camp. When you talk about creating an atmosphere for guys to learn and to create a championship mentality, it doesn't start on week 1. It starts the first day of training camp. It actually starts in OTAs during the summer. And when you have a guy that has the veteran leadership as a guy like the Sausage had, you can put him in the room with 12 other guys, the strength coach, the conditioning coach. Hey, drill, let's do this, do these obstacles, let's do this competition. And you know you get guys full effort because a guy like Sherman understands what it means to go whistle to whistle, day to day, giving it your all. You want to empty the tank every day. You want to create what that wall is, get to the wall, bust it down, break through it each week during the OTAs. Exhaust yourself to a point of failure so you know what it feels like to be exhausted, right? And then during training camp, when it comes time to learn and build, you're building a team that has no fear of being tired. You're not even worried about your conditioning being a problem. You just got to line up, execute, do your job, and you do it week in and week out. And you see coach telling guys, hey, it's one game at a time. It's one game at a time. Well, if guys are worrying about their conditioning level and are they strong enough and have they worked out enough in the offseason, those kind of doubts start to creep into your mind. The Chiefs had none of that. And it goes to those veteran leadership guys like the Sausage, Pat Mahomes, Kelsey, all those guys that in the offseason definitely put in all the time.
And don't forget Anthony Sherman's play on special teams. In 7 years, he's been the most consistent special teams guy. If you go back and look at Tyreek Hill's returns on punt returns from a couple years back, almost always the fuse is lit for the beginning of that return by Anthony Sherman. Now, I got to tell you, Shop, our house is all torn up, so I couldn't find the crock pot, but what I did find was the slow cooker, right? I got me a slow cooker. So that's what we got, slow cooking here. Because, again, if you follow the Defending the Kingdom podcast, that when we call you a crockpot guy, it is a compliment, meaning you weren't there for the roster at that time, but the team keeps you around, whether on practice squad or even if you get injured, you can be injured waived, right? You know what that is. So then you can go to injured reserve. They want to keep you if you go to injured reserve or you go to the practice squad. This running back position now, we got some interesting guys, and I'm going to start with Darryl Williams because fans have even forgot about Darryl Williams. And think about what he has done already in his career. The 41-yard run against Baltimore, the 52-yard run against a pass against Houston that Bill O'Brien tried to challenge. He tried to challenge it, thinking it was a pick route, and ended up being a 52-yard reception, a 30-yard reception at Detroit. Here again is a guy that's 5'11", 224, the exact size of Damian Williams. So Darryl Williams kind of fits the mold, but I'm going to put him in that slow cooker because he's got a rehab from an injury, 1, and 2, people have already forgotten about him. He was also great in the postseason in 2018.
Yeah, and that's one thing we want to do. We want to make sure when guys are injured, guys are coming back off injury, not only as a fan base, coaching staff, teammates, you don't want to forget about those guys because when you don't see them around, when you're not seeing, you're kind of forgetting about that. Sometimes that affects your mentality of preparing and being ready to go. And so make sure when I was playing, I made it a thing every day when I got to the facility. I would go by the training room. Any guys I saw rehabbing off of lower body injuries, anything, I would go by, spend 2 or 3 minutes, ask them how their day was going, what they got going on off the field, ask them how their rehab going, letting them know that, hey, we ain't forgetting about you, man. When you get healthy, you got to be ready to go full speed. The train ain't going to slow down for you to get on. We're going to keep this thing going. And so you got to be ready to overtrain and get yourself ready so you can hit the ground running. So I think D. Williams is doing a good job of when he was a part of this, knowing his role, attacking each down when he was in the game, playing special teams hard, but understanding that role of being a running back by committee. It doesn't have the glam and glitz, right? It doesn't have all the fame as being at some other teams. But at the end of the day, when he gets to put that ring on that says world champions, he'll know he made a commitment to it and made a contribution as well as anybody else.
Yeah, no question. He was a captain at LSU, too, with all of those great running backs at LSU when he was there in Darryl Williams. But again, talking about what Andy Reid wants in a running back, enough power. Again, Damian Williams has become the prototype, a receiver, a pass blocker, a runner, can get short yardage and still has the ability to pop big plays in this offense. All right, Crockpot guys, there are some very interesting guys here as we somehow try to navigate through this protocol that we're in, try to flatten the curve with this pandemic. And when things get back to normal and practice gets starting again, guys, that will be very interesting to watch. One guy's Elijah McGuire. He's on this roster. He played 24 games with the Jets, 6 touchdowns with the Jets, 69-yard touchdown against Jacksonville back in 2017. Another guy's Marcus Marshall, 5'10", 200. He played last year in the preseason. You're not going to like him because he went to James Madison, right? A University of Richmond rival of the Spiders, but he originally started at Georgia Tech. But those are a couple guys in the crock pot, the slow cooking simmering. When they jump out of that crock pot, you may have something here because these two guys, to me, carry some intrigue.
Man, I wear that Spider pride on my sleeve. I wear it. I'm a proud Spider. And the hard thing about the James Madison Dukes right now, it hasn't been much of a rivalry because they've been kicking our butts about the last decade. So my wife is a proud graduate of James Madison. So in our house, we'll be happy for that running back that came from James Madison. But like you said, he's in the crock pot. He's got to spend some time with our coaching staff. The one thing we do is we definitely create an atmosphere for running backs to be explosive and be successful. No matter where you came from, where you were drafted, those things aren't prohibiting you from being an all-pro when you're talking about being a running back in the Chiefs offense. We've taken running backs from various locations, various levels of skill, and they've entered our offense being okay or whatever they are, but they've left our offense being sometimes top caliber, all-pro, very desirable pieces. These guys in the crock pot, they just got to spend time absorbing what we coach and what we teach. Coach Bieniemy, that's one of his credits in his history, the number of running backs he's playing on the all-pro level is something that's almost
Yeah, I'm glad you brought it up because if there is a position room that has a consistent culture and has for 7 years, it's been that running back room. And they have been leaders in special teams. They're warriors. Coach McCullough has done a phenomenal job, and he's not very far down the hallway. There's, Coach Bieniemy. So Bieniemy still got that DNA in him with the running backs. But between he and Coach McCullough, I love what the running backs have done in the mentality that they've developed. And they develop players. I mean, Sharkandrick West is an example. Spencer Ware got a chance to rejuvenate his career here. So it is a big part of this scheme with the Kansas City Chiefs is what they do in that running back room and what they build that permeates throughout the entire team. And speaking of developing, how you like my Spags? I call it my Spags. It's kind of a feeble attempt. I want to be Steve Spagnuolo when I grow up. So I got it going on. You guys can decide if you want it or not. I know how my wife's voting. Anyway, let's jump into the free agent market here. We're going to follow the same pattern we've done with our Defending the Kingdom podcast, and that is dealing now with the free agent market. It's been not as active necessarily at the running backs, although we've seen some dudes flying around, right? Melvin Gordon goes to the Broncos from the Chargers, but there's still some guys out there. Devontae Freeman is still out there as last I checked. And then here's an interesting one, if you really want to get fun with this, is Carlos Hyde. Now, I'm showing you here my charts from preseason when he was a Kansas City Chief last year in St. Joe. And, oh, wait a minute. It's the divisional playoff game. There he is with the Houston Texans sitting right there. So he's still out there and hasn't been claimed yet. I mean, you could pull the deal off if you did this of trading him away to get Martinez Rankin, a tackle that we said is in the crock pot, a good young prospect, and then getting Hyde back. But we'll see.
I wouldn't think that's too much of a far-fetched idea. Some of the things that the Houston Texans are doing right now are kind of blowing your mind to begin with. So I think we should maybe offer a couple pounds of Oklahoma Joe's barbecue, something like that. See if O'Brien will bite on that. He's been trading away some star players for almost nothing. So, this guy's a free agent. We should definitely at least entertain bringing Carlos Hyde back into the fold, basically because one thing, he knows the offense. So that's when you talk about that learning curve, being able to understand the offense, know the offense, and have a grasp about where you're supposed to be, the style of this offense, and understanding the passing game and protection. Carlos Hyde is a leaps and bounds above any of those free agents when you talk about entering the fold. The thing about the Chiefs offense going into the preseason, I just think that we're 95% full. We got enough guys already in the We don't have to make any big spends. But a running back position isn't a position of need here. So we can kind of just wait and kind of let free agency. If one of those pieces come by at a veteran minimum, if we can get Carlos Hyde to just accept a veteran minimum to come and be a part of a winning culture and winning atmosphere, have him come back to a place he knows. Definitely entertain that, but I don't think we should be spending any more money on that position right now.
All right, that leads us into our final part of this edition, the Defending the Kingdom, as we focus on the running backs, that's the draft. Following the same format we've done here for 5 weeks, we jump into what's available in the draft. And what's interesting, let's talk about the draft position. First of all, Chiefs, as of now, have 5 picks. And the good thing about winning the world title is you get to pick last in the draft. You're going, why is that a good thing? It's because you won the world title. Believe me, we picked at the top of the draft before. That's not as fun as picking at the bottom. Let's just put it that way. But at the bottom, the way this draft the prognosticators have looked at it, the plethora of wide receivers here, skill positions, there could be a running back available at 32. The mock drafts for months, I think Daniel Jeremiah's draft has had Jonathan Taylor, Wisconsin, sitting there at 32. So you could find a running back, even not at the 32 spot, even in the second, maybe the third, or even the fourth rounds, that could be a David Montgomery of the Bears type guy. I loved him coming to Iowa State, but a guy that becomes that clone of a Damian Williams.
Well, I've been doing some extensive draft research on the running back position. And my number one guy isn't the number one of anybody else's. It's the guy Swift out of Georgia. I think he's so electric. I think he has a great DNA of football. But one of the things I really like about him is his birthday, 1/14. That's my birthday. We share the same birthday, so he must be a baller. He's about 25 years young. So he's got that on me. But when it comes time to play football, DeAndre Swift from Georgia, that's one of the guys I would target. And I don't even think we need to target him in the first round. I think he'll still be there. Pretty much 5 running backs. I think 3 of them will still be around with our second round pick. That's how much I think the offensive tackles, wide receivers, quarterbacks, corners are pushing great talent to the end of the second round of this draft. So, like I said, it's not a position of need with free agency, but if you can add a piece, you can add an explosive piece like Swift. He has return ability. He played special teams while waiting at Georgia behind Chubb and behind Sony Michel. So he's a guy who can do everything. He's a jack of all trades. I think he will be an awesome addition to the Chiefs offense.
A lot of guys to talk about here. Another guy's Clyde Edwards-Hilaire of LSU. 55 catches is the guy that, he gets your attention too. Now, that team was loaded, we all know, winning the national championship, and there's going to be dudes from LSU all over this draft. But when you look at Edwards-Hilaire, his ability to be at the very least, a start as a third down back and maybe also give you some special teams help. But 55 catches in college at any school gets your attention.
Yeah, and he's coming from LSU, right? National championship team, so I agree. He knows what to play on the big stage. He's a childhood teammate of Darius Geist that plays for the Redskins. They grew up together. They've been 2 peas in the pod ever since high school. One guy pushing another, and you like that competitive nature. You like guys that have been competing all their life, not taking anything for granted. And he's been able to be patient on and off the field, waiting for his turn. And when he's been given a shot, he's made the most of it. And so that's when you know a guy's he can step up when the lights are on and give you big play potential, game in and game out.
Other guys that come up, J.K. Dobbins of Ohio State, although there's some concern. He had 3 big fumbles during his season. And again, those will probably get the attention of Big Red. You mentioned it earlier. A fumble gets the attention of Big Red. It's hard to get it out of his mind, even as the months go on during a season. But it makes you appreciate Damian Williams as well. I'm going to bring up Jonathan Taylor again of Wisconsin. Blistered the combine, 4.39, but the fumble issue comes up with him as well. And is he the kind of back that fits in Andy Reid's system where, again, think about a Damian Williams and not so much a Todd Gurley?
Yeah, I would say I would really have a hard pass on Jonathan coming here from Wisconsin. I think he's too much of an upright runner. He has more of a track style. You think of like not on skill level, but that running style. Like you said, with the fumble issues, those things are hard to coach a guy out of. If you're a guy that just is nonchalant with carrying the ball, it becomes a habit. And because you spend most of your time focused on the guy that's carrying the ball, and you don't have time to teach him his position, his assignment, the play progression, and all the other things that make running backs very elusive and very elite at this level. But then we got the guy from Florida State, right? Cam Akers. He's a guy who's, and you know what I like about him is we like about every position. If you were a former quarterback, you are automatically going up a couple of spots on my draft board. And this is a guy who played quarterback and running back in high school. He has all over the field. He's a guy that can do it all, play special teams, throwing the ball, running the ball. One of the most prolific high school careers almost ever that we've seen in the high school level. And I think he's went to Florida State and shown and proved he can do it at that level. And I'm pretty sure any team that get Cam Akers is going to be really proud and really happy with the athlete they get, the interest of building.
The other thing I want to bring up here as we get close to closing is I think when Brett Veach looks at this and Andy Reid looks at this, the RPO game for a running back is very important. Now, we see a lot of running backs that play the downhill style, the ISOs, the leads, the powers, but the RPO game, particularly with Patrick Mahomes, how much of an art form is it or a learned trait to be an RPO running back, not just an RPO quarterback, the run-pass option, where it seems like there's got to be a knack for that a running back has, and it's almost better if he comes out of an RPO college system.
And that's definitely true. Being able to fake and play out that play fake throughout the play, holding and freezing that linebacker. Some running backs, you know where they're going to get the ball or not just by their stance, whether they're messing with their gloves. Sometimes running backs have their hands on their knees or their hands on their thighs or hips, depending if they get the ball or not. So little nuances like that defenses can pick up on film. It definitely hampers or handcuffs your RPO ability week in and week out. And so as that spread system, they know the RPO, the target, the aiming points, the level of the amount of patience a running back has to have at the snap of the ball. They don't rush through their fakes. They understand all the importance of that. And when you talk about plug and play, a guy that can come to your team, play special teams, but also be a third down back and be able to help on normal downs, they have to probably have come from a system like that to be ultra effective, especially with the aspirations our team has, which is not only to get deep in the playoff. We want to repeat. We want to create a dynasty. We want to keep winning as many points every year again, right? We refit those backpacks, start climbing up Mount Kilimanjaro as we did every season. But it starts with guys being committed to the program, being committed to the process being greater than the product. So yes, guys coming from an RPO system in college, that spread system, are more effective going into this system than a guy that comes from a traditional power eye offensive set.
Okay, so everybody knows it's not necessarily your number one fantasy pick at running back that plays for the Kansas City Chiefs, but he's your number one reality pick, because what Andy Reid likes, he likes to have that combination of power and speed, a guy that can play in space, but he also is a willing or wants to learn how to pass block, run the RPO game, play with Mahomes, and have enough action and enough attacking ability and enough run-ahead speed like Damian Williams has shown, and particularly shown in the Super Bowl. Find that guy, plug him in, let him go, and keep that running back position rolling in 2020.
No doubt, no doubt. Well, before we close up, man, hey, if anybody's around, we got some Monopoly. You got to find some Monopoly to play in. You might get yourself a book. I got Kevin Lockett's son's book, Reflections. I got all kind of stuff. If you got a little kid, maybe an Alvin and the Chipmunk. Whatever you got to do to keep your sanity, keep inside, keep social distancing. This is Shawn Barber from Defending the Kingdom with my man, Mitch Holthus. As we do every time, man, we want to create an atmosphere for everybody to be good, be safe. Back to you, Mitch.
Hey, babe, I'm disappointed in you, though. I'm disappointed in you. Okay. we got people that listen to this that work out. We should have probably done this on a treadmill. Next time we might have to do it while we're both on a treadmill working out, because everybody seems to be working out, listening to Defending the Kingdom. I mentioned a guy named Chris McGowan who listens to every one of these podcasts and works out to them. But you met him in Afghanistan. You act like you had met him. And then there's another dude named a 2-star commander named J.T. Thompson that a guy texted me that you met in Afghanistan. And he said, hey, we don't shop. He was with us in Afghanistan on the tour.
I had the opportunity to do a spirit tour in Afghanistan. I think it was 2015. Went over the group from it's an NFL group. We go over there to do a fitness and spirit tour. We went to Afghanistan. We went to all these different bases, all these little unique spots. We met all these soldiers. Man, we had such a great time bringing just the Falcons and the Patriots. And we watched the Super Bowl. That's where I watched the Super Bowl with these guys at one of the barracks. It was a time of my life, an experience I would never forget. Tell those guys I send so much love and appreciation for keeping us safe from the States all the way to those guys in Afghanistan.
Absolutely. All right, Barbershop, we'll do this again next week. And we got some awesome stuff going on at Chiefs.com. So check it out as we go revisit the World Championship 2019 season. And remember to pray and think of our country and really throughout the world. I'm Mitch Holthus, voice of the Chiefs. Thank you for joining us on this edition of Defending the Kingdom.
Thanks for listening to the Chiefs Official Podcast Network.
10-5, touchdown! Lock it down! And the celebration begins at Arrowhead.